Dementium the Ward is a horror first-person shooter on the Nintendo DS and is one of the 11 M-rated DS games released in the US. Before we go any further, I do apologize that the gameplay footage isn't the best. It was kinda hard to record this and especially hard to get a good angle and good lighting. Back to the review. While apparently the game can be beaten in 4.5 hours, it took me about 9 hours to beat. The game consists of 16 chapters, and despite the game literally saving every time you open a door, except for chapter 16, dying forces the player to restart the chapter from the very beginning. This was incredibly annoying on chapter 6, which took me about 2 hours to beat. And poof, it was all gone after I died and I had to restart. Thankfully, with knowledge from my first try, my second attempt only took about 20 minutes. And on the chapters with tougher bosses, Return of the Cleaver and Return of Wheelchair, the bosses are at the very start of the chapter, so dying doesn't really have any big impact on progress. That being said, the final chapter was also very frustrating. The final boss killed me several times, and each time I died, I had to restart, and it was a 10 to 15 minute trek back to face him again. And again, and again. And a couple times I died on the trek back, just adding more time and frustration, but it was very satisfying to finally beat the game. The story of this game was a bit of a mystery and wasn't finished leading into the second game. While I likely will eventually play the second game, complete copies are currently going for over $100, but the PC remaster was less than $10 to purchase. So yeah, I bought the PC version of the second game. Discussing what little of the story was revealed and pieced together, with some of this being largely speculation, a doctor wearing a black outfit, his name wasn't revealed, so let's just call him Bob, broke into your character's house, killed your wife while your daughter watched in horror. Your character is William Redmore, by the way. And then that Bob framed you for the crime. William was arrested and sent to a mental ward in a hospital where Bob proceeds an experimental surgery on William's head, resulting in William hallucinating 99% of the events in the game with only brief flashbacks of reality. Once you've completed the game, you receive a short cutscene showing Bob operating on William's head and stating, "The patient has survived Phase 1. It's time to move on to Phase 2. Moving on to the topic of combat and controls, it took some getting used to. The controls themselves were simple, using the D-pad to move, the left trigger to fire, and the touchscreen to select weapons and write in the notepad. Combat was pretty iffy though. You can't aim down the sights on any gun except for the sniper, which glitched out on me a couple times, so you were forced to hip fire. But the crosshairs aren't super accurate. You can fire 10 shots at point blank range and 11 of them will miss. But in all seriousness, the hit markers were really bad on almost every weapon with a ton of recoil, and once I got the buzzsaw, that ended up being my primary weapon, dealing heavy damage, no recoil, and the only weapon that wouldn't miss at point blank range, but even it had its issues every now and then. Just the DS being the DS, I guess. The game's map layout were almost all puzzles, which you had to find your way around while fighting enemies, while also finding ammo, medicine, weapons, level maps, and various quest items such as keys or parts of a torn photograph. As I previously mentioned, this is a horror game, but most of the horror elements have completely worn out by about Chapter 5. Mostly just a eerie environment with creepy music and some jump scares, but after a while, the only really scary part is fearing that you'll die and have to restart the entire chapter. There are a few puzzles you have to solve in the game, but all of them are pretty simple. The only difficult one was trying to get the combination for the padlock to the shotgun, which I think was glitched. I did end up having to Google that one, only to find out I had put in the right code, it just glitched and didn't want to register the first time. Apologize if my mic just picked up some motorcycle driving by really loudly. One negative thing I must say about this game is there is no chapter select, so once you beat the game, let's just say you wanted to go back and play Chapter 7 again, you would have to completely restart the game, play Chapters 1 through 6, and then to get back to Chapter 7. Like, there's no chapter select once you've beaten the game, which is a negative thing, I would say. One last thing to mention, sometimes as you pass patients' rooms, you could read a note saying why they had been admitted. Most of them were serious, but one patient had been admitted for gamer's thumb, with his treatment being a ice pack. Funny little Easter egg the devs added. Overall, despite some difficulties and a super annoying save system, I give this game a 7.9 out of 10. It doesn't quite feel worthy of a 8 out of 10, so I'm leaving it there with 7.9. Well, everyone, that is my review of this game. I would really like to know your thoughts down in the comments. Always remember that Jesus loves you, and I hope you have a blessed day. Peace out.